This is episode 4 of Trailkings podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the places we've ridden and which ones we would like to go back to. Stick around to the end and we'll discuss which one is on our bucket list that we hope to do in the near future. Well, I'll go ahead and go first. I've actually been to 18 different locations. Depends on how you count our most recent trip to Hatfield McCoy. If you count it as the trail system as one, it's 18. If you count it as the individual trail systems, I guess it'd be 21 because we rode Rock House, we rode Devil's Ants, we rode Buffalo Mountain.
Yeah, the 3.
So that was the 3 trail systems within the Hatfield McCoy system itself that we went and rode. So I guess maybe to pump the numbers up, I'll say 21.
There you go. Yeah.
But many of the systems on the list, I'd say at least half, we've ridden together. So other ones we've been to together is Windrock,
Rodwell
Blue, and then Brimstone.
Yeah.
We did together. And then
we've done Barnwell Mountain.
Then Barnwell Mountain together.
Mena.
Yep.
Mulberry.
So that's Mulberry Mountain, and then Mena is Wolfpin Gap and Fourche Mountain.
Yeah.
And then we've both been to Mulberry Mountain.
Yeah.
In that area. So ones I've done without you would be Crossbar Ranch. That's in Davis, Oklahoma. And we'll list all these in the description below. So if you're looking for a new place to go ride, you can look those up. And there's a few of them that we actually have a series of videos on that we'll link. Another one we forgot is Stony, Lonesome that we did together.
And then South Carolina.
Yep, South Carolina.
Carolina Adventure World.
Oh, so I got actually 22 because I don't have that one on here. That's crazy. Let me go ahead and put that down. Adventure World.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that we've been on that I wouldn't say go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know South Carolina, we talked about it being kind of pricey for the drive and the drive being long, but there's a lot of people close by that I think it'd be worth it for. Yeah.
It was perfect for the kiddos to learn on.
Oh, yeah.
Because the trails they were when we went well maintained, and their moderate stuff really wasn't that difficult. Not for our kids driving it in our machine. So I think it's a place you can probably go fast on. There are some steep stuff, but it's like 1-2 spots that we found.
Yeah,
there wasn't a whole lot. Yeah. So before I was into the hard pack rock stuff, I've been to Mud Creek, River Run. Those are both in Jacksonville. Mud Creek is actually closed. Back where I grew up at, we had Willows, Eddie's, Mud Park, it's closed. Rocky Ridge Ranch, Decatur, I actually think that's closed now. Have you ever been there? Yeah, you came there with me.
Where?
Didn't you come with there when I had the Rzr 800?
Oh, me and Sasha, that's where we went. Yeah. Yep.
So y'all been to that one. Sabine ATV Park, that's always a fun place. Now Muddy Bottoms, that's the Taj Mahal of mud parks. You've never been there, but it's one place. If you're into mud riding, I would look up Muddy Bottoms. At the time we went, they were only doing events there that you could actually go ride there. You couldn't just go on any weekend. It had to be event weekend. Crossbar Ranch is a really fun place, and then Lake Murray. So
yeah. I actually have to add one. I went to Redneck Yacht Club in Florida.
In Florida.
But we didn't go on a side-by-side. I probably wouldn't go on a side-by-side either. We went on a platform buggy. Nice. But there's a whole lot going on there. But
now, you've been to some other ones I haven't been with you on. What are those?
Yeah, so the main one actually was the same park that was 2 different names at one point. It was the Sandlot in Punta Gorda, Florida. And that was really cool because they had a motocross track, they had some trails out in the woods, so So it had a lot of different things you can do. They also had like it was just it's a park, it wasn't like state land.
Yeah.
And so, but that was a neat place to ride because you actually take and, race your side by side on the track, or you can go out on the trails, or, there's a place for the kids to swim and food and stuff. It was a really neat place.
Now, that's one place I guess we haven't done yet. Well, two things. We haven't been to the sand dunes yet, my family. Second thing, we haven't been to an actual track that you can get these things off the ground on.
Yeah.
So those are two I hope to do in the near future. But out of the places y'all have ridden, with us, without us, is there a place that stands out to you the most that you're like, you know what, regardless if we're filming or not, I'd go back there and ride?
Yeah, there is. And so for me, that's it's West Virginia, the Hatfield McCoy trails, and we kind of talked through this, after that trip too. Is it reminded me a lot of Tennessee. There's a lot of challenging stuff, but what's really neat is there's a bunch of different trail systems. There's seven or eight.
I think 8 or 9.
It's 8 or 9, and so you've got a bunch of different trail systems. There's trails connecting them, where you can drive on the road. And then you can always get to a town. You can get to somewhere to fill up, somewhere to eat, or something like that. So I love going to Tennessee, but you're limited with some of that stuff. You can't always get to where you want to go in the town, just because of rules and regulations. But for me, and it may be because it's most recent, but also I really enjoyed being able to get around.
The Hatfield McCoy system.
Yeah, the Hatfield McCoy system.
I wouldn't say that's mine, but to build off of that, when that was on the bucket list, the whole before our family is to what it is now, that to me, that trip was always going to be like a 3-day ride one direction. And now it's very doable if someone maybe either a family didn't have kids or had older kids, and you can stay in hotels and it's planned properly. Because everything is so spaced out, it is a place that could be fun. Or you can camp out under the stars. I don't know the rules on that, so if y'all did that, you have to look that stuff up. But the way we did it wasn't how I always envisioned riding Hatfield McCoy, but still, a place that I don't regret going, and definitely would go back to ride again, and the other trail systems. A lot of memories made, good and bad, but it's definitely a trip we will never forget.
That's been my most expensive trip so far. It didn't have to be that way. It just made it that way.
Yeah, that was personal decisions made right there. So for places we've ridden, that's a hard question for me because everything is unique. Like Stony, Lonesome, the family wasn't with us, but for me, that was a fun place.
It was, yeah.
And I think that could be a fun place with the family. So it was like going there thinking it was just gonna be a guy's trip and learning like this is a fun place I'd bring the kids back to because of how the trails are, especially on that mountainside where it was a little tighter for the bigger machines, but the kids' machines, 2-wheel drive, would have had a field day with it racing around there. So that stands out to me wanting to go back to. The history of Hatfield McCoys, I love that part of it. Any place we can go and there's history for the kids to experience. So Windrock in that aspect was probably the most memorable for us because you got a tour of this jail that's there that, we went in 18 and closed 10 years before that. So that was a pretty cool experience to walk through those halls. And at that time, it closed about 10 years ago. And think 10 years ago, someone was in this cell. Someone was in that solitary. And then with that, the restaurant right there. So that's like a fun day, right? You're heading one direction, you eat, you go experience this unique thing, and then you can head back to camp. So I would say if I had to pick all the places and only could pick one, I would say Windrock. And that's on our list. We didn't film that because that was before we were filming. It is on our list to go back there and actually film a trip there. So hopefully that's something we can entertain y'all with. So out of, part of our vlog system is we have a list of 50 something parks. and then we're just slowly chipping away at and actually adding stuff to it as we, you know, come across things we've seen online or in the forums. But out of what you've learned throughout, you know, looking at the list that we have, what is the one place we haven't rode yet, and we don't have to go to next year, but that is on your bucket list to actually go experience at some point in the near future?
I've got 3.
Okay.
So 2 of them are going to be probably similar, but I don't know that because I haven't been there. But the 3 would be Moab in Utah, riding Glamis in the sand dunes.
Yeah.
And then out towards like I don't know which parks are out there, but like Montana, Wyoming, that area, because I've just seen some of the trails people ride out there, and it's completely different than anything that we've done. I mean, Tennessee's cool. West Virginia was awesome. It was, but they're similar, right? It's the same kind of mountains and all that stuff out there. It just seems like a whole different world. And so we don't have anything like that in Florida, and I haven't ridden anything like that we've gone to do together. So that to me is something I really want to get crossed off the list.
I wouldn't disagree. You know, I think those are iconic locations. You know, Moab, Glamis that you go to. A channel that I watch actually learned about a sand dune similar to Glamis called Anthony something. I would actually want to look into and compare those two and see which. I think it's up in Oregon somewhere. But ideal place to go, I would say, like, if I could only pick one, and I like all those, and I'm down to go to all those for sure. If I could only pick one, it might not even have a lot of history there, but to me, it's the coolest way to get onto this place to go ride that you can ever enter a riding location on, especially with all the equipment you have to carry. You don't even have any idea what I'm about to say.
I mean, in my head, I've got ideas of like how you would get to a place, but I don't know what it is. So I don't know if it's a ferry, a helicopter. That'd be cool. But yeah, I have no idea.
So Drummond Island, I've seen a few different videos on it. Actually, you know, most of y'all follow and I follow Side by Side blog. They've been out there a bunch of times, but they have to take a ferry. I've never put a vehicle on a ferry, much less one loaded down with a trailer and multiple machines on.
They load it like that?
Oh yeah, they drive straight on. I mean, all their rigs. So they all have 3 trucks with 3 trailers loaded down. They drive on there, and that ferry brings them across to the island, and then they just ride the island.
That's pretty cool.
None of it looks bad and steep. There is some water involved, but you know, the videos I saw them, they all have like all-terrain style tires that, you know, they don't get stuck. I mean, they've been stuck before, but you know, the heels don't look that bad. I could be wrong because, you know, video is very deceiving, but I think the uniqueness of it, of the whole experience, right? Yeah. Getting on the island and saying, you know, I've never been able to do that before.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That's a long drive just to experience the
that one thing.
Island. Yeah, but
I think if you go up there, you're doing more things than just that. You know, maybe that's a summer trip where we spend a week there, a week somewhere else. You know, a week at a third location. Yeah. Our biggest hang up on a lot of our trips and our planning and our picking is Doug lives in Florida. I live in Texas. And so, you know, we have to take a lot of consideration in drive time for, you know, are we meeting in between each other? Or are we both going north? You know, Rally at the Pines, I think it's in Idaho. Yeah. I think it's close to your Wyoming deal, which just looks like different terrain to me. Right. What worries me about like Colorado and those places up there, when I was really looking at Colorado, they have width restrictions. I mean, there are still some 50-inch trails out there or 60-inch trails, and without ever being up there, I wonder if that is, you know, due to the trail only being that width on the mountain, meaning if you're 72, you're literally hanging off the mountain. Right, yeah. Or
you're in a bad spot.
Yeah. Exactly. Or is that just, you know, an old rule that they've set years ago and it just hasn't been able to keep up with the with the industry as a whole on how wide these machines are going. So
Yeah, a lot of places put that restriction, then you get there and like, oh, that's okay, just go ahead.
correct. I mean, Lake Murray was like that. Like we put a 72-inch wide machine on their trails, and the first time we went, it made it. It'd been okay, but now the second time we went, the place hasn't been well maintained. A lot of brush is hanging over. It would have scratched the machine up constantly. So, you know, it's now I would never bring a 72-inch wide machine back over there. I mean, we brought the Ranger and it was getting scratched up. And it's just not into just tearing my machine up because they don't maintain the trails.
Right.
Especially when, you know, it costs $10 a head to get in there and we're paying $60 a day just to have access, you know.
Yeah.
So have you found any places in Wyoming or Montana that you like to go?
I haven't yet, and it's just because it's one of those things where for us to go there, I've got, you know, a 18-hour drive to get here
To Texas.
and then to go how many 18 hours or whatever it is. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but once we're serious about going, we'll get that nailed down.
I mean, I think California is 24 hours away from me.
I'm aware. Yeah. So that's why we haven't gone to California. So, you know, it's one of those things there, you know, where do you have the time? Because, you know, you work and have family and all that stuff. So where do you find a time to make a 3-day, from my place, a 3-day drive and then only to ride 3 days? You know, no, I'm not going to do that. Like I want to go out there for 10 days or
multiple days
or whatever. So, and that's why I haven't specifically picked out a place, but those are the areas I for sure want to go to in the next, you know, 4 or 5 years and have them all done. That'd be nice.
Well, and they have Little Sahara, which is in Oklahoma, which isn't that far from us.
Right.
But it would be iconic to our first trip to the sand dunes be at a place like Glamis.
Right. Like if you're gonna go
St.
do
Anthony's
go do
or something like that. Yeah.
I would probably want somebody to take
Tour
us
us around.
Yeah. There are too many stories about being out there without.
Apparently, getting lost in the desert is not on his bucket list.
No, I'd like to come back from the trip also.
We don't need another day 3 at Half Hill McCoy's happening out in the desert.
Yeah, we'd be in trouble. We'd be in deep trouble.
The wives would not be too happy with that.
Yeah. Nope.
So what parks are local to you in Florida that, you know, you could be more active at?
So we've actually got one that's a couple hours from us. I think it's West Florida Off-Road Park. Now similar to what you're talking about, they don't have like weekly hours or anything like that. But that's one I'd like to try because they do have some races and some other things that'd be kind of cool. It's mostly, I think, a mud park, but they do side-by-side races on a course.
Yeah.
And then there's also, we have Ocala National Forest, which for a long time they cracked down on riding in the forest. From what everybody said, we always wanted to go up there, but just in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen where there's some campgrounds that are you can access the trails with ATVs, and they're talking about how to get permits. And so I was just telling him when we get back, that's here in the next probably few weeks, we'll be out there to Ocala and see what that's like and just get a good idea of what's there to offer. We're only a couple hours from there, so that's something we could go do, you know, every month or so if we wanted to. The boys love to ride, and Sasha loves it too, but for them to get some more drive time just behind the wheel, even though it's not steep mountains, it's still you get more familiar with the machine. So that's what I'd like to do.
You know, I don't know if I mentioned it yet, is I've never really been to a place, I think I mentioned earlier, that has a track on it.
Right.
And so I think hopefully maybe the end of this year, beginning of next, I like to go to Texplex. It's, you know, within a couple hours of us.
Yeah.
Our main park that's down the road is Barnwell Mountain, and we really haven't explored that a whole lot with the family. I've been there with, you know, adult rides and gotten rowdy, but we did one big loop with the kids, but I would like to break that down a little more because they, like your kids, love to ride, and you got to keep them sharp on those experiences, especially looking at what we did in Half Hill McCoy. You don't want them to get rusty.
I was nervous.
Then get put in those situations.
Yeah.
So well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Trail Kings podcast, where we talked about, you know, the places we've been and the things on our bucket list we'd like to go to. If you've enjoyed this, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to turn on notifications. Stay tuned for our next episode and stay safe on the trails.